towards the front. Okay, I shall now upload my public comment. We will talk about two foundation now. Coming into the meeting now is ordinary US quick firing was mostly used to fire a solid armor-piercing shot. Let's see whether they can do this in here. They'll lift one up, take the wheel off, go around to the other side, take the other wheel off. Using a trail spike. Once the gun's deployed, the shield goes up. The two-pounder had a maximum rate of fire 20 rounds per minute. To one side to search the target. And there would always be render on the detachment to provide local defence if they were particularly close to the enemy. I'll just hand over back to Adrian. He can tell you a little bit about the 6-pounder while we wait for them to deploy.
6-pounders, these steadily replace the 2-pounders of the British Army. To give you an idea of how rapidly we manufactured the new 6-pounder, in 1941 only 201 were manufactured. In 1942, the following year, 17,854 with a further 16,500 being manufactured the year after. We were well equipped with this weapon. It had immense penetrating power. It was copied by the Americans as the thing. Be prepared for the shot. That's the 2-pounder. Now we shall engage with the 6-pounder. Well, there we go. What we shall do now is have both weapons. Thank you, thank you. We shall have both weapons fire simultaneously, just to give you a bit more fun, and then each weapon will independently fire their final 2 rounds to give you a grand finale. So,
Two-pounder and 6-pounder. 1 round, engage. Okay, 6-pounder is going through a misfire drill at this point. So number 1 is calling check breach. 6-pounder is now out. You try firing twice. If it doesn't fire on the second, then everyone, half of the detachment will move to the rear. The number 1 and the number 2 check the breach and they'll retire to the rear, and the gun will have to stay there for 10 to 15 minutes just in case the round fires itself detonates inside the breach. I think we need to give have you got the training time to get the best out of that technology? from the soldiers as Germany loses the war. They purposely tried to keep the training regime going to get them organisations. Now, I'm looking around the field and I'm just seeing if we're nearly ready. Do we think? We think we are. So, I'm now going to hand over to Tim Broad, who's back again, and he's going to take us through this battle scenario where we'll see how Tiger 131 was originally captured. So over to Tim.
Tunisia. Times are hard for the Deutsche Afrikakorps. Their charismatic leader, Erwin Rommel, has been evacuated back to Germany with stomach complaints. The British are advancing from the successful battle of Alamein, and very recently an Anglo-American force has landed. It is the 504th Heavy Tank Battalion, Schwerpanzerabteilung, right? Comprising the brand new Panzer Mark 6, the brand new Tiger tank. So here we are. They need to force the Germans out of their initial frontline trenches. They can do that. Then they've got a real chance of holding the heights. There's some movement there. The Germans are moving back. The Germans are moving back. This is not a rout, ladies and gentlemen. This is a prepared move. They know full well where they're going. They have a second line of defence. Pre-prepared, pre-planned. Sherwoods have occupied frontline trenches. But the Germans are now able to lay down fire on those trenches. They know, for instance, precisely where they are. So the Sherwoods are in danger. Things like mortars being laid down on precise positions that the Germans already scanned out. So the first leg of the attack has gone in. Germans have been distracted, and the British armour is moving in. Now this is not 48 RTR. Right? Here is one of the supporting British tanks, Matilda 2, so-called Queen of the Desert. Matilda have been very successful in the opening years of the war, far superior to anything that the Italians have had, for instance. Heavily armoured, you'll remember David was saying that one of the reasons that the Germans worked on the German positions. Nevertheless, for Matilda to cover the Sherwoods, getting such a good advance they make, it has. There we go, laying some shot down. Hello, they didn't like that. There they go, there they go. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a race. They know perfectly where they're going. They've got a third line of defence. Defence in depth. This is very, very much from the German playbook. If defence in depth is on page 1 of the German playbook, page 2 is counter-attack. We know they're going to counter-attack. That is a given. It just depends on what they can bring to pin armour. It's mounted at 30 gun, which is the standard American anti-tank gun, and it is an American vehicle. It is the Corps forces in the west, the part of East, and the other part of the west from Alamein. No, but from the Allies. And as we can see, it will certainly have to measure the end. Now, the Sherwoods are taken to the falling back to their final position.
Hay to come back.
The presence of the board,
therefore I'll read the arrival of German armour is strengthening, stiffening their resistance. We always knew this was going to be a difficult fight. At the moment when it comes to therefore have that's just going to leave on the punches which are going to struggle to finish off the shoulder. That's the role of the empire. On both sides of the line. Those young Midlanders there in the German front line train. Hitler's much promised reinforcements are arriving. Now looking at the Tiger, I can tell you its registration number. This is the platoon commander's tank from the 3rd platoon of the 1st company of the 504th. That gives us the turret designation 131. Now the Sherwoods are pushing ahead as best they can. They don't really have a lot of opportunity here. They've got to keep out in the open. As things stand at the moment, there is nothing on the battlefield that can stop that 57-ton monster. Spring-loaded tank weapon, which, to be honest, is a bit more effective. The firepower. Churchill 3 mounts the 6-pounder. Now you've seen a 6-pounder in operation here. We know that it's a serious bit of kit. We know that the first Tiger in the Churchill. Now the Sherwoods, at this point, are barely aware that 48 RTRs arrived. Churchill is taking advantage of its incredible climbing ability. The Churchill can take on the slope which virtually... As an infantry tank, the role of the Churchill was to support the that's exactly what it's doing here. Sherwood needs some firepower on their side. Churchill's taking it to the Tiger. That's it, they've
Right, now, Tiger is compromised. They're pushing, the Stewards are pushing to take the final position. Advancing. You're going to take the final position. Yep, the Stewards have got the Africa's got the roaring. Tiger is still immobile. A vehicle being used as a liaison vehicle by senior officers. They've come to have a look at the scene. They've convinced themselves that the battle is won. Tiger 121 is safely not moving. Now, ordinarily, we know now the story of Tiger 131. We know that it's disabled effectively. Currently done. At least one crew member is injured. We know the radio was not found. And we know actually the fact that we're going to recover the engine behind the engine on the mountain.
Well, thank you, Tim, for following that. And I say this without too much joking, but already the Germans have been with the Russians and Kazan before it comes to power. They've been experimenting with tanks with the Soviet Union. They've had these secret road tractors that been tracked from parts, etc. They've done some experiments. And again, real credit, we've been able to keep this one running for an awful long time, and it still sounds fantastic. Beautiful piece of German engineering there. So another vehicle coming on in the background there that we so often overlook is the Valentine tank. And this is a tank Britain made over 8,000 of these in World War II, but most of any one model that tended together. And it was in the late 1930s. This one, later in the war, as I mentioned, they do see service in India. The first floating made on the and they go on to service in India, etc. well into the 1950s. So important. This is another most of the audience much more familiar with. This is the favourite German tank.
This was what was going to be the light tanker of the Americans. It was a scouting vehicle. A vehicle that it was relatively fast. You could get up to 30 miles an hour. So when the British first came, they were giving them in North Africa. The British soldiers really liked them. One of the key things was reliability. The Americans would use tried and tested components that seemed to work. If you've got a reliable I think Tim already said the story, but there's a that's why that start with a gun, fire a few rounds, make them reveal themselves. So on this vehicle, this is the M24 Chaffee tank. They actually got a gun, the same size gun on a curve. They angle the iron, they go to Cadillac, and they say to the Cadillac, oh, we're going to build you, we're building us the M5. Hard work, the M5 is hard. Whatever level, you can see the very first thing inside the museum there, one of the first photographs. 1945, just the end of the war in a couple of weeks. They take the first, and then the know that